Hello, welcome to Subculture and welcome to our intimate panel discussion. So we are going to be breaking down a survey conducted by Freeletics into the Americans' habits of fitness and chatting about that with some brilliant, bright minds as well. We'll be breaking that down here for you today, so come forward. My name's Layla, nice to meet you. And to kick off, I would like to introduce the CEO of Freeletics, Daniel Sobhani. Hello, take a seat. So Daniel, for those in the room who are new to the brand, tell us a little bit about Freeletics and the Dare to Be Free campaign.
So first of all, thank you, Layla. It's great that you're here.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to welcome the room and everyone who's also outside of this room watching and following us. It's great to have you here. Thank you. To your question, Freeletics is a leading fitness app that uses artificial intelligence to provide hyper-personalized fitness coaching.
Right.
And right from the beginning, we were always driven by this one vision, to challenge and inspire people to become their greatest version. So we created this routine, this concept that allows people independent from their background to train their physical strength, their willpower, free of all these usual barriers that you have to train, such as time, money, know-how, age, or equipment.
Mm-hmm. And so that's the Dare to Be Free campaign launching here in America right now as well.
Well, the Dare to Be Free campaign directly goes into the same direction. So with Dare to Be Free, what we are doing is that we want to show people that in the 21st century and with technology, you can really support people in having a healthy, happy life. So we are addressing all these barriers that people feel and show that with Freeletics, those aren't any barriers anymore.
So without delving into results, tell me firstly, why did you decide to survey the American public?
Freeletics started in Europe, and core focus of our global expansion currently is the US. So we wanted to understand the US, the people, the market. We wanted to kickstart this discussion because, you know, more than 1 out of every second person in the US, more than 1 out of every 6th kid is overweight, and that's supposed to even increase. Although fitness and health can do so much positive to your life expectancy, to the value in your life, so we really need to get this going now.
Absolutely. Right. Well, in order to have an open discussion about the survey that you've done, we've invited some special guests for you here today. Please first welcome the former Olympian and CEO of Laureus USA, Benita Fitzgerald Mosley. Our next guest is an author and has completed no less than 50 ultra events and 14 Ironmen in a year alone, the founder and CEO of Spartan. Please welcome Joe Sena. And a woman who's held the highest honor in Women in Finance Awards, the CEO of 100 Women in Finance. Please welcome Amanda Pullinger. Thank you very much for joining us. Let us dive straight in and talk about barriers firstly. Joe, I think you're a good person to ask about this. What's the difference between a barrier and an excuse?
Yeah, you know, I'm not big on excuses. I like to say anything short of dead is an excuse, right? So like, if you're not dead, you can do it. We like to say just tape it up.
Do you agree, Belinda?
I certainly do.
I think your microphone's just on your left. Don't worry.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I make enough excuses, probably more than anybody, as a working mom and executive, and as an Olympian. It's kind of hard to think that I'll never reach the heights that I did in the past. So the excuse is, well, if I'm not going to get there, why bother? But I realize that definitely most of the barriers I put in my own way. that I can have very much power to take them away as well.
That's a really important point, actually, the psychology of most of the excuses I put in my own way.
That's a really interesting point, if you allow me to add. So maybe just one sentence. I think we need to acknowledge and respect that some people have really very, very, very tough schedules. So, for example, at Freeletics, we have a few cases, obviously, where they're, single parents, single moms doing double shifts and so on. So this is really where you need to support people. But I slightly disagree to the death. I think the only one real barrier, which is not an excuse, but barrier, is whether you're emotionally invested into fitness versus logically invested. So everybody here knows that fitness is good for you. Like, nobody will disagree in general, but do you really feel it? Do you believe in yourself? And if you do, then you make fitness a priority. And if you do that, everything else is just it's an excuse.
But I'm sorry to interrupt. But if you don't buy in, right? If you don't, then you're out of the survey. Like, you're not part of the statistics we're talking about. But if you buy in that eating healthy and working out is better for you than not, well then, I mean, it's a little bit of a prop here, but I carry this thing around because if I walk up the stairs, or I go from the bag check to the taxi, or I just walk out on the stage, I just fit my fitness in. No excuse.
Yeah, and that would be my perfect definition of you're emotionally bought into the topic. You really feel it.
I love, if we're disagreeing on question number 1 of the panel, we're going to have a good day today. I'm loving that. Amanda, would you like to...
Can I just bring it... So I work in the finance industry, and what's interesting about the finance industry is part of the DNA of the finance industry is that people in the industry who've succeeded tend to have played competitive sports, tend to think that of fitness as being part of what gets them up in the morning, what gets them moving. I think that excuses become much easier to do away with if you incorporate it into part of your life. I love your example. So, I think there are some simple things that we can do. I think a lot of people aren't necessarily going to run a marathon right off the board. And I think some people can make an excuse, I don't have time to do that. But actually, to add walking into your daily routine, or in the case of, in the finance industry, the organization I'm part of, we'll do activities for our members that are around sporting opportunities. So, Race for the Cure, put together a team of women who are not necessarily athletes, who don't think, and the reason that they decide to do that is not necessarily because they want to exercise, it's because they may want to meet other people in the industry. So there's a component of it that you're kind of checking various boxes.
We made it even simpler. Our office is on the 6th floor. We disconnected the elevator. I'm not joking.
Did they love you for that?
I mean, they have no choice. They got to walk the stairs every day.
It can be as simple as getting off the bus a stop earlier, really. There are ways everyone can inject into their lives. Well, excuse number 1, if we can call it that, and one of the headline things on the survey that I found the most shocking is that 2 in 5 Americans feel they are too old to work out. I'll start with you, Daniel. What's the age limit on Freeletics?
Well, I mean, generally, every person has to check that they're in a physical condition to work out, but I think that almost everyone is, and even if that means that you start with walking 10 minutes around the block. So there is no age limit on working out. Quite to the contrary, the benefits of having an active lifestyle versus a non-active lifestyle will increase the older you get.
Do you agree?
You're not dead. You're not dead. Dead is too old. Everything younger than dead is good.
In this case, I do agree.
Would you like to know what age the average American thought was too old?
I'm probably, you and I would get this, but it's got to be a pretty low number.
Apparently, if you're over 41, you're too old to work out. I found that disgusted me, if I'm honest. What do you think, Belinda?
I was pregnant with my second child at that age, so and working out at the same time. So I feel like, it's people would say 41's too old to have a baby. Well, I had her at 42. So I just think that it's all a mindset, and you've got to set that aside and keep doing what you got to do.
So why do we have that mindset, Amanda? Why do Americans feel like 41 is too old?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the images that are portrayed, and I think that so Benita, kind of you look at someone like Benita as a role model in terms of sports, and it's like, oh my gosh, I could never be an Olympian, I could never do it. It's almost like it's a binary decision. We either going to reach Benita's level, or we're not going to do it at all. And so I think that sometimes, I think those images are one of the reasons. I think there's a very, there is this sense of perfectionism in the American population, that if we're going to do something, we want to win at it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. So for me, I was not a runner. But at 41, I ran my first marathon. I did the New York Marathon, right? But why did I do it? I didn't do it because I wanted to, and this comes back to finding other ways and other thinking around activity. I didn't do it because I wanted to be Benita. I did it because I was doing it for a charity. And I'm a very methodical person, so I downloaded whatever the training schedule was from, in terms of, if you're going to do a marathon, this is what you have to do. And I found people to do it with me. And I think that's part of the issues. We can't do this in an isolated way. We need certain other motivations, right? Although coming back to technology, I think technology can play a really important part in terms of motivating. And I remember at the time, and this is in the days when Lance Armstrong was seen as a good guy. The days that I did my longest run when I was training, at the end of that run, I had Lance Armstrong in my ear saying, "Congratulations, that was your longest run ever." And can I tell you, that simple thing, that actually motivated me.
The affirmation.
So, yeah, I'll talk about a couple things. My parents are both deceased now, unfortunately, but my dad started rollerblading in his 60s.
Wow.
When inline skating was just really, really popular, like back in the early 90s, and he got on skates, and he just loved it. He skated everywhere. He took his skates everywhere. We were living out in San Diego. He came out and spent some time with us, and he was rollerblading all over the neighborhood, and this tall, lanky, African-American dude, in sunny California. He was birding, he was hiking, he was doing all kinds of things. He was traveling all over Europe. He had a bucket list in his 60s and 70s of visiting every continent in the United States, and he fulfilled that bucket list. And so in my experience growing up, I've seen my parents, both of them actually, embrace this idea that age is just a number.
So there's a benefit there in that you had good role models.
Yeah, I did.
How
definitely.
important are role models and the role models that we have today?
I was just thinking about this question because the stories that Amanda and Benita share were so inspiring. You don't really have a lot of role models for higher age groups, which is a big problem because role models are shown to be one of the most motivating factors. They give you the trust and the confidence that you can do this. And I think this also points towards a bigger still issue in the fitness industry, which is that, especially in the past, it's changing a bit, but especially in the past, fitness was a lot about, it was seen as being slim, and it was seen as what's the fastest, almost most unsustainable way to get to a six-pack or to being, beach ready, and that's not relevant for people at a certain age group. So these were also factors that really made that almost like a forgotten demographic.
So, a large majority of Americans feel they're too old to work out. They feel the age 41 is, an ending point to work out. What can we do about it?
At Spartan, we put on races all over the world, and we have hundreds of thousands of 60-plus-year-olds that come out. We have a 74-year-old woman who I saw recently at a race with a black eye.
Wow.
And I said, "You get in a bar fight?" And she said, "No, I was running the trail." She had done, I think, 16 Spartan races last year at 74 years old. So they're out there, and those are our role models, and you're never too old. And so I don't know. I think you just get going at 41.
I think also there's a not only health, but a safety issue around fitness as you get older. And certainly 41, 42 is not the age that you're going to, start having accidents and falling and those kinds of things. But certainly for my parents in 60s, 70s, 80s, as they got older, the more fit they were. They never broke a hip. They never, fell. Just, they just didn't have those issues.
Even rollerblading around town.
Even rollerblading around town. He had his helmet on and everything else, but no, they just didn't have those issues. But that's the number one cause of death a lot of times for older people is they fall, break a hip, and then all kinds of other things happen. And so
but it's probably inversely correlated, right?
Yes,
the less active you are, the more likely you are to slip
that's what
on
I'm saying.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So, I think people get confused with that because they fear working out because they don't want to hurt themselves, but it's the theory of bend so you don't break.
It's the exact opposite.
That would be better.
Yeah.
Which is why, for me, I think walking is such an amazing thing. And I think it's, in some ways, I think the sports industry portrays all of these extreme sports. And I think to some extent that's another thing that people think, I don't want to be injured, etc. But walking is something we can all do. And so again, going back to this group activity, I walked across the Sinai Desert for a charity a number of years ago. Absolutely fantastic activity. All age range. My mum came with me on that trip, right? And so I think getting beyond this, you can't do it because you're going to get hurt or this, that, and the other. I think, while running and all these other extreme sports are fantastic, I think for the average person, just encouraging them to walk more is a really great starting point, because I think you do feel better about yourself. I get my best ideas work-wise when I'm walking.
I think one of the common denominators, what everyone was just saying, is the trust and the belief in oneself, having that role model. So how we do this at Freeletics is that the AI technology would adapt to elder people anyway, but what we did now was to create specific journeys and training programs for people at higher age groups that specifically show them that, yes, this is explicitly done for you with a role model, with somebody to aspire to give them the trust to do this.
Perfect. Well, let's move on to another barrier, which is time. 42%, almost half of Americans, say they don't have the time to exercise. We have seen an increase in longer working hours. Obviously, people have long commutes. Everyone on this stage, I know, travels a lot, works long hours as well. I guess my first question to you would be, Benita, how do you find the time?
I started, I run an organization called Laureus Sport for Good Foundation, and we did our first big gala fundraiser in the fall during Fashion Week, and it was called our Sport for Good Fashion Show. We had athletes walking the runway, and I decided I wanted to be one of the athletes walking the runway. So I had to make sure that I was in half decent shape in order to do that. And I made sure that I just put it in my calendar. And I live in a subdivision outside of Washington, D.C., and we have a golf club and a sports pavilion that has, and I'm a member, and we have all kinds of classes in the morning, in the evenings, every day of the week. And every day at 9:30, I just picked whatever class was going on at 9:30 a.m., I did it. Now, that's obviously during the workday, but I just put it in my calendar, and I just scheduled my life around it. I mean, I'm working all day anyway, so I got up a little extra early, checked email, did what I had to do, went to my class, came back, and finished doing what I had to do, because I just had to schedule it. The problem is, after the fashion show for a good month or 6 weeks, I kind of lapsed again, so I'm back into it.
So you've sort of touched on a point of prioritizing there. You've put your exercise first
Absolutely.
and worked around it.
The second way to do it is I realized that there's a type of exercise, HIIT, high intensity interval training, or Tabata, whatever you want to call it. I realized and did a lot of reading on it that, gosh, in 15 or 20 minutes of high intensity workout, I can get the same effect on my body, cardiovascular system, and everything as if I did a 45-minute to an hour workout at a slower, less intense pace. And so I like that, short, fast. I'm a sprinter, so I'm used to doing interval training. That's what I'm born and bred on. And so, I always have 15 minutes. I always have 15 minutes, whether it's beginning of the day, middle of the day, end of the day, and you don't need equipment to do it. You don't need to, you don't need to be outside or inside or, on a bike or anything else.
Joe, you've mentioned a couple of ways of injecting it into day-to-day life, carrying around a kettlebell, not using the lift. Have you got any other good tips like that?
Yeah, I think if you, and you'd know the stats better, but most people join the gym and they don't go. Mm-hmm. Most people sign up for a program and they don't do it. and they come up with all kinds of excuses. You use that word. And so what I found is what you said, which is you have to have something on the calendar. It could be walking down the runway, it could be walking across the desert. And so we not to sound self-serving, doesn't matter if it's a Spartan race or anything, you have to get something on the calendar. And if you got something on the calendar, as soon as it's over, you got to get something else on the calendar.
Yeah, that was the problem. I didn't have something else on the calendar.
It's got it. You have because you will come up with excuses. I don't have time. I don't have that. It's all baloney. So you got to have something on the calendar.
So Daniel, how important is a target and aim? And also, we mentioned there about signing up for the gym and not going. But I guess what would be worse is having the gym going and not doing the right things.
Well, I think the most important prerequisite for success is that you make it a clear decision and a prerequisite, a priority for you. So that's the number one thing. And then afterwards, there's some very healthy tactics that you can use to significantly improve the chances of your success. So having healthy expectations. You're not going to go from wherever you are to fitness models who do nothing about, then fitness the whole day within 3 weeks. Those are unhealthy expectations. So, and with these more healthy expectations of what you want to achieve, break down your plan in small steps and make sure that you're not trying to do these super big lifestyle changes, these extreme things in the short term, because those are almost inevitably going to fail on you. But take these small, consistent steps, make small lifestyle changes, ensure that those become habits, because these small steps, they accumulate up and they have significant long-term positive improvements in your life.
Out of curiosity, what time do you guys get up in the morning?
It depends on where I've been traveling, to be honest.
Okay.
But usually 6:30.
Daniel?
Latest at 6 a.m.
4:55.
I had a feeling. Benita?
7.
7. Okay, just out of curiosity. Okay, well, how pivotal is discipline here? Because the survey said that Americans, on average, are saying they have roughly 89 minutes of free time per day.
I should say I work from home unless I'm traveling.
Yeah,
so
that's easier.
That's easier.
So the average American has 89 minutes of free time per day, yet 2017 statistics from Snapchat, Instagram and Twitter are showing that we're spending around 3 hours of our time on social media. So maybe discipline has a lot to do with this, Amanda?
I think all of these things are combined, right? Expectations, setting goals, I think is a really so yes, it's discipline, but I think the setting goals is a really critical piece. So training for something, right? Having a goal, and I think that will address some of the challenges around expectations in general. That it doesn't matter at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if you finish that marathon in 5 hours or in 3 hours or in 6 hours. The commitment that what you take from that is that you finished it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think having those goals is really important. And I think the discipline comes by having those goals. So I do think discipline is as an important piece of it. And again, I don't think, I think that we have in our mind that, somehow we've got to work out for 2 hours every day or whatever. But, for example, and again, maybe it's a different kind of discipline. It's kind of a mind discipline to say, we live in a great city for walking, right? So, and in fact, half the time it's quicker to walk somewhere than it is to take a taxi or the subway. And so I'll do a lot of my meetings with my colleagues. I'll say, let's talk about this topic, crossing town. Mm-hmm. Let's arrange to actually, and we'll do walks in the park, for example, around, and talk about work issues. So it comes back to kind of time. So it's not necessarily that you have to do something every day that's for a long period of time, but it's really a change of mindset in terms of how can I incorporate exercise into daily living, and as I said, I get my best best thinking comes when I'm walking, and I think the conversations I have with others when I'm walking, I find that they are more strategic. So there you are, you're actually saving some time. You're talking, so you're combining work. You're coming up with brilliant ideas, which I think is a byproduct of sports that actually doesn't get talked about enough. And you're introducing some discipline into your life.
Joe, so we're saying that we don't have enough time to exercise, yet spending an average of 3 hours a day on social media. Is social media bad for your physical health?
I think it is. I have 4 children. We have 4 children, my wife and I, and they are mandated to work out every day, 7 days a week, many days, 2-a-days. And they love, Minecraft and Fortnite and all the games that other kids. And before you know it, 2 or 3 hours do go by where they're playing video games. And so I think what would be awesome, it's a little off topic here, is if we somehow incorporated fitness into those games. So
or
you can
Pokemon. Pokemon is a really good example of getting you have to walk. You have to walk to earn certain points.
Virtual reality could go in that direction of making you...
Yeah, so look, we're not going to get people off social media. We're not going to get people off computers and laptops and phones. But maybe you make it a non-negotiable with yourself, like we do with the kids, where every 30 minutes, set a timer on your phone, right? And do some of the exercises that Freeletics puts out there every 30 minutes. Do 3 burpees every 30 minutes. Do something. I do the kettlebell, I take the stairs, I do my thing, you do your walks in the park, just incorporate it into your life.
While we're on the subject of social media, we're using the hashtag #DareToBeFree. You're not working out right now, so it's okay to use the social media. And follow us on Freeletics across all socials as well, @Freeletics. Okay, so whilst we're on the subject of social media still, let's discuss expectations, which you mentioned earlier. We're all looking at highly filtered, face-tuned faces on Instagram, and 58% of people said that when they did get through the barriers of time and motivation and get to the gym, they didn't see the results they expected.
Yes, so I think that skewed expectations are one of the big issues that you have in the fitness and health industry. Unfortunately, it's something that's not going to be solved quickly. It's going to take a lot of education, a lot of communication around this, because the fitness industry, or most of the people who are looking at fitness are attracted by these extremely fit, extremely good-looking role models and want to see changes in the fastest ever possible way. But that's a sure way, it's an almost sure way for you to fail. Because if you only want to go close such extreme radical developments in short time, it's going to mean that you're going to have to take very, very big changes to your lifestyle, to, from 0 to 100 in terms of working out and nutrition. And going back to the willpower or discipline question before, I think that if you rely on discipline and willpower for your too heavily on discipline and willpower, also that's a sure way to fail. Because now, let me quickly simplify it, because willpower it's a very simplified concept, but willpower makes you do things that you do not inherently enjoy in that second. Just a very easy definition about that. And it's a finite resource, so it depletes over the day. So let's say, for the sake of argument, you have 100 willpower points and a heavy workout's going to cost you 50. You might be able to do that workout when your day has been perfect. You're on vacation, you're lying on the beach the whole day. You're going to be able to do a workout maybe in the afternoon. But as soon as daily life hits you, you have to take care about your family, your work, you have stress, you have problems to solve, your willpower is already depleted. So let's say in the end of the day you have only 20 willpower points left. You're not going to not only not do that workout, but you're going to feel guilty of not having done that workout, and you're going to end with a chocolate bar in front of the TV. So I think it's all about very small steps. So, take something that takes 10 willpower points, walk around the block, do it long enough, early and do it long enough until it gets a habit. Like brushing your teeth, you don't think about this. And once it turns a habit, you don't need any willpower anymore. And then you add the next step on top of this.
I try to change my expectations a little bit then. And then next thing I started doing was actually looking at people running in my neighborhood or wherever I was going for a run. Well, they didn't look like like the people on the track, right? And so I realized going for a run just kind of meant like putting one foot in front of the other and moving forward. So once I reset my expectations from, Olympic champion running to, gosh, I just want to be fit running, then it really made me better. So those 18 pounds, came off pretty quickly after that. I, reset my expectations. I understood that, they were somewhat unrealistic. I was setting the goal based upon my own example of being an Olympic champion.
You were your own bad role model.
Yeah, I was my own bad role model. I was my own, setting unrealistic expectations in my head based upon what workouts were 10 years before. And so I think that all of us have to reset regardless. And I think, what I was saying about what my doctor was telling me is he was trying to just set that expectation. Benita, you're going to work hard. The weight's not going to drop off as the way it might have when you were in your 20s. Don't be discouraged by that. That's normal. That's physiology. That's, something you're going to have to face. But that shouldn't stop you. You got to kind of recalibrate a little bit and understand what that looks like in your 40s is different than what it looked like when you were training on the track for the Olympics.
We're being taught so many different things online. You see so much about dream big, aim high. Should we be lowering our expectations, Joe?
I was going to jump in, and a perfect question. Another trick we can all apply, which is kind of lowering your expectations, is we've got millions and millions of people coming out and doing the races, so we have the benefit of talking to them and finding out what works and what doesn't. We've interviewed lots of Olympians, and what they do as a little trick, I don't know if you did this, I don't know if you do this, is I got to go out today, let's say, and every day I got to ride 5 hours on my bike. Well, when I talk to these cyclists, they don't want to do it. No human, you don't want to do it, right? So the trick is, I'm going to lower my expectation. I'm just going to go out for 30 minutes. I know I got to do 5 hours. I'm just going to do 30 minutes. Well, 30 minutes invariably turns into an hour.
You're conning yourself.
An hour turns into 3 hours and turns into 5 hours because you don't turn around. And so we call it sneakers on. Just get your sneakers on, right? Maybe you don't have the 100 points in the willpower. You've got 10. I'm just going to do a few minutes outside.
It's very similar to the just for one day
always
theory.
Doesn't stop.
Yeah, I
Do
totally
something.
second that.
That's what I say. Just do something.
Totally second that. Yeah. But I wouldn't want to raise general, your goals and your ambitions. But you need to have a healthy expectation, what's required to get there and how long is that going to take you. That's, I think, the key thing. I would really not want to get people to generally dream lower. Dreams are inspirational and aspirational.
I don't know how much the survey went into why did you feel your expectations weren't met, but I suspect a lot of it is around image, right? Yeah. It is around that image thing, and I think we've got to recalibrate what are the goals of fitness. And as I said, I don't think there's enough talked about in terms of opening your mind and getting that, your brain moving in terms of ideas and thinking about other things. But I think the image issue, I suspect that will account for quite a lot of the low expectation.
High expectations.
High numbers in terms of not meeting expectations.
And absolutely unhealthy advertisement and promises. You're going to drop 40 pounds of weight in 4 weeks by taking this pill or doing this exercise for 7 minute workout. So for whatever minutes per day, it's just, that's one of the core evil things. You're going into your program, which should be a very positive moment because you want to change something, with so screwed expectation that there's almost no other way than failing on them.
So I have one more final statistic I'd like to look into, which I guess we need to be conscious that with our work is very different to the average American's role, but 46% of Americans feel that their work gets in the way of them working out. What can we do about that?
So, I brought up before that there are a number of, so I run a global association of women in the finance industry, and what we find is that particularly with our next gen group, so these are women who've been in the finance industry for fewer than 10 years, they have various sessions that they will put on. Now, a lot of them are around industry topics, negotiating skills, career goals. But they will at least a couple of times a year in each of the locations where we're running these next-gen groups incorporate activity into what they're doing. So they will do a spinning class where they'll come and then they'll go out for drinks or whatever afterwards. They will do a race together. So I actually think the finance industry does a pretty good job of incorporating exercise in the corporate culture in terms of, raising money for charity by doing a spinning competition at work. That happens quite frequently in some of the major banks. Or, encouraging employees to do a race together. So I actually think that you can use that you can kind of turn it on its head. I do think it's up to obviously the leaders in different industries to encourage their employees to do it. But I think that sense of doing something together with your colleagues overcomes this sense that somehow work is a barrier. Actually, it combines work with exercise.
Daniel, how important is it that leaders, CEOs, managers encourage their employees to work out and exercise?
I think
enable them to do so.
I think this is one of the absolute core things, and it even goes more than role modeling. It's as a leader, as an organization, you really need to want your teams to be healthy, to work out. Because if it's just, if you just put it somewhere in a corporate program, or one person in HR is dreaming about this, but no one else cares about this. Also, there's no social status around working out. If your organization is around, all the social status is coming from, I'm working as hard as I can from 9 to 12 in the evening or something like that. All these things are not going to make you succeed. So from the top of the organization, you just full-heartedly have to want this for your employees. You have to give them the freedom, the ability, the possibilities, and then, yes, very, very importantly, be the role model for this change.
Joe, we know you enable your employees to work out. Have you seen any results from it? Is there a benefit from that?
It changes the whole attitude of the organization. I think people become much more high-performance focused if everybody knows individually how much better you feel when you work out. So imagine the multiplying effect for an entire team. Mm-hmm. And then the bonding and the team building and the dropping of barriers between folks. And so we get them out at races all the time.
Thank you. Benita, I believe you're part of the CEO Challenge that Freeletics have started. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm just joining up, in the last couple of days, but I'm excited to know that, for the next month, that's going to be the challenge for me, is to ensure that several times a week I'm getting a workout in. I'm using the app to help guide me as to which workout, suits me, as my age, my body type, my fitness goals that I have for myself. And so, yeah, I'm excited about it and excited about being a role model for my team as well.
Yeah, Daniel, tell us some more about the CEO Challenge.
So I'm really excited about the CEO Challenge. The basic idea is very, very simple, is that walk the talk. So as a leader, show your organization, be a role model for your organization in how you can combine working out with working, and help them to have more healthy, more sustainable, more fit lives. I think as leader, you have responsibility to showcase this. As leader, you have the responsibility to really drive it into your culture, to show that it's really wanted, that you invest into your health and fitness, to appreciate that, and that's all that the CEO Challenge is about.
Brilliant. Now I want to open up to some questions on the floor. I don't know if it's possible to dim the lights ever so slightly because we can't see our audience, but if there's anyone who has any questions for our guests, go ahead. Do we have a microphone to come over here on the top right? Here we go.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Daniela. I'm a friend within the media. I'm a big fan of Freeletics. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you.
I have a few questions, actually.
We got time.
You have time? Okay, perfect.
Have we got time?
A question.
Go for it, we got time.
And this is a question for all panelists. How do you avoid the boom and bust moment of January for fitness?
Of course, yeah. I know there's that sort of fad feeling. Everyone signs up in January, wants to get fit, and by March, gyms see it all empty out. How do you avoid people giving up come March?
Well, I'm doing dry January right now, which doesn't involve exercise, although I'm actually finding that it's easier to get up in the morning and exercise doing dry January. I think again, there has to be some goal that you set, right? So I keep coming back to these opportunities to actually do an event, and I really do think that is what keeps most people sustained. You've got to have some goal to start the year. So, for example, and this happens to be in September, but there's a charity, a cerebral palsy charity, that does what they call Steptember. And what they do is they encourage companies to put together teams that compete on how far they walk in September, and they raise money for charity at the same time. Well, maybe we should be doing that in January so that people have something to aim for. But I think it goes back to you can sustain exercise if you've got something that you're aiming for.
Definitely. Thank you.
So how we at Freeletics do it, not only in January, generally for our users, is that we do our best to help them set healthy expectations and then provide them with training plans that are really fitting to them and really adapt to them, their lifestyle, their circumstances, their performance, their daily life circumstances, so that there's no barrier anymore to train, and then help them drive these habit, changes, incorporate habits, and also have mindset changes, not only physical changes.
I think that diet is not something we've talked about so much on the panel today, and I'm finding that, or have found in the past, that they have to go hand in hand. And you've got to find, there's a couple of things you had on the buffet this morning, those little muffin things that I ate a couple of. I'm really finding that I have to figure out a way to eat the things I love to eat, but eat them in a form that doesn't cost me as many calories. And so I'm trying new recipes. I'm looking things up to try and figure it out. I know that's all incorporated into the Freeletics app, so I'm looking forward to seeing some of those recipes, because I'm trying to find more bang for my buck. And I love sweets. So that's an issue for me. So I need to satisfy those carb cravings, through fruit and some other healthier carbs that reduces my desire to want to eat sweets. And so I'm finding, oh gosh, if I eat this, this, and this, then I really don't crave them as much, right? And so I think those things have to go hand in hand, and it actually gives you more energy, and you're less tired, and you have more of the the motivation and the willpower that you need in order to do the workouts.
I'd go one step further too, and whether it's diet or working out or an event, and find some friends that are going to hold you accountable.
Nice. Thank you.
Because without that, it's hard.
Before you move on to your second question, just because I think we might be able to come back to you, does anyone else have any questions? You do. So we'll come back to you for your second question, if we don't mind handing the mic over, and we'll go round. Can we pass the mic along? If you give us your name before you...
Sorry, can I just add something? Because I think you're right. So I think a way that social media can be actually very positive is in keeping people accountable. So actually putting, I have a very good friend who was, severely overweight, and she put on, now she didn't do it openly, she did it on Messenger in Facebook, but she created a group, and she said, this is what I weigh. And this is what I want to get to. And I need you to, and I'm going to tell you all what I've done today. So I think that social media, there's the downside, but actually that keeping you accountable, I actually think social media is really great for that.
And that's a good friend who tells you, you need to stop putting cake in your mouth. Go for it.
Thank you. Howie Schwartz. I'm with Super Soccer Stars and Amazing Athletes. We're a youth fitness programs. I guess this question's a little bit more themed towards Joe, but what we're trying to do as we continue to grow, and we're across 29 different states, a lot of different 30, 45-minute classes for kids ages, with the sweet spot of really kind of 2 to 8 years old. But we're trying to do partnerships with, whether it's events, whether it's gyms, basically put parents in the mindset that when they want to achieve their fitness goals, they have places that they can drop off their kids, and there's programming for their kids to be doing things, as opposed to, and not that there's anything wrong with this, just being dropped off in daycare where they may be coloring, or they may be just sitting around and stacking a toy, whatever it may end up being. Have you, as Spartan Race grows, et cetera, as Spartan grows, et cetera, looked into ways to have programming for kids where so that parents can focus on their fitness goals while still knowing that their kids are taken care of at the events themselves?
So we have hundreds of thousands of kids that come out and participate, do the events, and they're the next generation. So super excited. I mean, I love seeing the kids come out. And when you talk to the parents are crazy about it, not only because they get to do their own workouts while kids are doing that, but also because they bond with the child, and they train together then to do this thing. Where parents and kids don't always have that opportunity to work together towards a goal. Reach out, absolutely. Love to connect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Laureus Sport for Good Foundation is one where we are mainly targeting kids 6 to 18 years old, but we're really working to use sport as a tool to achieve outcomes beyond just participation. That we want, obviously to achieve healthy mental and physical aspects, but also education outcomes, employment outcomes, this idea of social cohesion. So we're dealing with youth justice issues and community development and community cohesion. And it's interesting, we all think about, I guess rallying around and watching the NFL playoffs this weekend, or watching the college football championship, or your Friday Night Lights, your local Friday football game, or even, Saturday I'm at a volleyball tournament with my daughter all day last Saturday. There were hundreds of girls in this huge, facility playing volleyball, and all of this huge community of people from the area are all together. It's a unifying force, and so I agree that not only unifying for families, but unifying for teams and employees or communities, and using sport as a tool to achieve those outcomes is really, really important.
I'm a mum of a 3-year-old boy, and I actually find him the main reason to work out at home, and I do it in front of him because I want him to see that I'm strong, and I want him to see that this is a normal habit of life. We should do it every day. In fact, if he goes to bed, chances are I'm probably not going to work out at home. And if my husband's working out, I always find it really important. Leave the door open, let him see what you're doing with the kettlebells, let him want to copy you and want to be that. So I find that less of a barrier having kids, but more of an inspiration. Turn it around and show them that's a habit to do every day.
Absolutely.
Do we have any other questions?
Hi, my name's Leslie.
Hello.
I practice yoga, I run marathons, but my question is a bit about social media, and also has to do with the language around self-care. You see a lot about that, self-care, being kind to ourselves, and then at the same time we have this perfectionism that I think is very prevalent, especially in New York. We want to run the fastest, we want to run the longest, we want to be the best in the yoga class. And my question is really, how do you balance the being kind to yourself with the self-discipline required to work out?
Good question. Really good question. Daniel. Because you're competitive by nature as well, aren't you?
So that's really, it's a fantastic question. It's also quite difficult because there's no easy answer, and it's for everyone. It's going to be slightly different. But I think there are a few key strategies that you can definitely do in order to do that. So one, I don't think you have to be ultimately strict on yourself. Everybody fails every now and then. If you start something, you're going to fail 6 times. And even if you are within a routine and habit, there are going to be days and also weeks where you're not as perfect as you want to be and as you used to be. That's fine. That's absolutely normal. It's very unhealthy to think that this, on social media portrayed life is real life. It's not. It's a snapshot that people selected for you. They're only going to show you, mostly they're going to show you their best moments ever. So that's one. The second tactique around this is, you see, whom are you doing this for? Are you doing this for somebody else, or are you doing this for yourself? So I generally think, and this is not only about fitness, I think that comparison almost ever turns out negative. There are some instances in sport, when you're very competitive, and if you do that for certain small amounts, controlled amount of time, it can be a very strong motivation. But the issue about comparison is that whenever you achieve that goal, you compare to that person you compare to, and so on, there's going to be the next one. It's a never-ending rat race that you do so, and you have to be very, very, very careful about that.
So I love this concept of personal best. And in track and field, it's clear, I've jumped longer than I've ever jumped. I've threw longer than I've ever thrown. I've run faster than I've ever run. And for my daughter, when she was a youngster, starting to run track at like 9 and 10 and 11 years old, she's 15 now, she was losing all the time. And I don't know that she really recognized it, because every time she crossed the finish line and she ran faster than she, 100th of a second, 10th of a second, 2/10 faster than she did before, guess what? You ran faster than you ever run before. And she'd be cheering and we'd be celebrating, and I kept track of it. And after she got a phone, I'd text her the time, and she knew, Mommy, was that my best time? I was like, no, it wasn't your best time, but you were within, whatever of it. And so she could gauge her progress by, what she had accomplished, and it was in that context. And so now she's on the track team in high school, and clearly she understands winning and losing, and she's winning more than she's losing, but she understands it all. And she also still comes back and asks me, Mom, is that my best time? And I'm like, yeah, it actually was. You PR'd today, in the 200 or whatever. So I think it's really important to achieve personal best. And that, again, applies to not just your fitness goals and even your dietary goals, but your life goals. What are those milestones en route to the ultimate goal that you've set for yourself? You've got to have those intermediary steps, and you have to set goals in that kind of smaller increments. And when you achieve them, you need to really celebrate that, because it doesn't have to do with anybody else. It has to do with, where am I in my life? Where am I trying to go? And what are the steps that are going to take me? And when I achieve something, I need to own that. I need to celebrate that. I need to embrace that success.
Joe, are you ever kind to yourself?
Never. No. We're in the obstacle business, right? So we present obstacles in front of people all day long, every day, and we celebrate failed obstacles, because we teach resiliency, right, and grit, and that ability to dust off and get back up. So just a mindset.
Yeah, I think the number one thing is consistency. And that goes also in that direction. If you fail at one of these obstacles, it's absolutely fine. If you continue, if there's a week, a month, a day, that's bad. It's absolutely fine. It's consistency that wins in the end.
So I think perfectionism is one of the... So I run an organization of predominantly women, and I think it's one of the biggest issues amongst professional women. And I think the challenge is that it stops women getting into the game. Because, so one of my staff members said, we should start a club that's called 80% is good enough. Because I think at the end of the day, it's putting your sneakers on, it's getting into the race, right? So I think that's the challenge with perfectionism, is that it actually stops you from doing things unless you know you're going to achieve 10 out of 10.
Yeah, but it also is, I want to do 10 workouts in March, and if I did 9, well, I only did 8 last week, so I did 9. I mean, the goal doesn't have to be time or distance or anything else. The goal is the goal, right?
Yes.
And you are going to fall short some months, but it's always nice to know, I've set that bar out there. I'm going to fall short sometimes, but when I reach it, boy, do I feel good. And it doesn't have to be some unrealistic.
Yeah. And I think
thing.
I think celebrating our achievements is again something that I think
Small and large,
New Yorkers are terrible at that too, right?
Yeah.
We're on to the next thing, and actually taking the time to actually look back and see what you've achieved, I think is a really important part of this.
It really is.
So in some way, we sort of celebrate failure, because in essence, you either win or learn, right?
Yeah,
and if you've lost out, there's something that you've benefited from in failing.
I don't know. I just feel like even if you fail, you're usually, for having tried, you're so much better off than having not done it at all. So, I look at someone who got last place in an Olympic race, a girlfriend of mine, a teammate, Pam Page, and she got 8th place at the Olympics. She got
Amazing.
last place. She got 8th place in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Like, would she rather have not been there?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think not, right? So I think you're just so much better for having tried and having put forth the effort than having not tried at all.
I also think that there's no real failure. It's either I achieve or I learn. It's one of the two.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my mindset.
But the experience is valuable regardless.
Any other questions?
But what about regeneration? You know, sleeping schedule, stretching. What does that mean to you?
I think it has to be a core concept of every sustainable, healthy lifestyle, of everyone. It's, you know, as important as giving 100% on your leg day is all the thoughts and all the consistent work on recovery, sleep, mindset, motivation, positivity. And the challenge around this is what I tend to see from a business perspective here is that, you know, with fitness you can give people very concrete things that they will achieve. It's it's a concept that has been around there for decades and decades. So it's more easy to bring people onto this. With what you're saying, sleep, mindset, recovery, and all that, it's less easy to tell the people exactly what they want to get out there. More than, you know, it's a bit fuzzy way, but it's going to really benefit you. So I would assume that the importance of this will significantly increase. Although we're still seeing currently some barriers, in this case barriers, some barriers in the minds of people to really accept this.
Anyone like to add to that?
The more I rest, the more likely I am to work out. If I've gotten too little sleep, particularly for several days in a row, I have no motivation, no energy, and particularly if I've been eating more junk food or drinking sodas or something like that. So I realize it's all, you know, together. And again, you know, as an athlete, when you do so many of those things right for so long, you don't even know what it's like. You know, you don't really, I think, understand and can't necessarily comprehend when it's all off how much that healthy lifestyle overall contributed to that success. And now you've got to kind of recreate that in a more realistic way. But getting, you know, 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night for me is what I need. 5 and 6, I can survive off of it, but I certainly won't thrive.
So
We get a lot of people through a 100-mile run, and our mantra when we're training somebody is the only thing that's going to stop you is you're going to get sick or you get injured. And so flexibility, mobility, diet is actually more critical than everything else. You may not win, but our goal is to get to the finish line.
I think it was LeBron James who said that the secret to him having this brutal training regimen was that he sleeps at least 9 hours a day, something like that. I think it was him who said that.
So I'm an at least 8 hour a night sleep. I love sleep. I love to sleep, but I think that the discipline around working out has to be applied to sleeping.
Yeah.
I am very disciplined. I know what time I'm going to get up, and I'm getting myself into bed. Yes, there are times that I can't do that, but most of the time that's what I'll do.
The amount of elite athletes I know that nap in the day. Well, these guys are training all day though, so it's like we don't need to tempt ourselves to sleep more than necessarily. But yeah, they nap and sleep. It's obviously very important. Right, we're going to need to wrap up soon. So any more questions? Yeah, go for it.
What do you see being the biggest fitness trends in 2019?
Good question.
So I'm happy to jump into this because I'm really happy to see this, and I think we've already briefly touched this before. That in the past it was all about this, being slim, six-pack, being beach body ready, and so on. But what we see is among our users, and when we research into the minds of people, that with these challenges of modern life, people are increasingly looking for, and this also ties back to recovery and so on, are increasingly looking for more meaningful, long-term impact changes to their life. So next to training, it's mindset, meditation, recovery, sleep. All this is. It's taking off. It's almost like a movement has started here, and we at Freeletics are very, very happy about this because this is the basis of your success. If you're not managing that, you will fail, despite what the advertisements try to tell you.
So you're saying it's a very holistic approach in 2019, right? All-encompassing.
Yeah. Holistic fitness lifestyle. That's what we'll call it.
One more question. Final question? No? We're good. Oh,
One more.
go ahead.
This is a question for either Amanda or Benita. How can sport have a positive impact on individuals and generally society?
In general society?
Yeah.
How can sport? I talked about it a little bit earlier. I mean, I really do think it's a unifying force. Our founding patron, Nelson Mandela, said sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to unite. It has the power to inspire people in a way that little else does. And so, you know, I feel like those words are ones to live by in the sports industry, that we not only use sport for sport's sake, but use it as a tool to change people's circumstances. And, you know, more and more, it's a pay-to-play model for kids, particularly youth, to participate in sport. We have less and less physical activity in school. We have fewer and fewer competitive sports opportunities. We need more intramural sports. In middle school and high school, we need more opportunities and for free sports participation. And with that, you'll have more kids participating. And sport is certainly the catalyst, not only for a healthier lifestyle for these people, for these young people, but particularly kids in underserved communities where they don't have access. Providing that access gives them an opportunity to get, you know, better grades and better economic opportunities for themselves and their families, which ultimately, you know, has an impact on the rest of us in our community. So it's a big answer, but I think sport is really an answer to many of our social ills that sits right in front of us that we haven't tapped into fully.
Let me just say one other thing. There's been a lot of studies done that it actually improves math. So, like when you look at children that are doing more sport and less studying, they're actually getting better scores.
Yeah.
So
I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. I think to summarize, you're not too old. You're making excuses. There's no excuse. Set fair targets, fair achievable targets, and celebrate failure. Download the Freeletics app. Thank you so much for coming today, Amanda, Daniel, Benita, and Joe. Thank you very much.